The Russian invasion of Ukraine has seen horrific human rights abuses. Yesterday's strike on a maternity and children's hospital resulted in 3 deaths, including a child, and 17 others were wounded in the attack, according to Ukrainian officials. President Zelensky's called the attack a war crime. Joining me now is Sam Rogovin, Director of the Lowy Institute's International Security Program. Sam, we're all horrified by what we're seeing. The question is, what more can be done? Can the West afford to be more aggressive towards Russia, or does that risk all-out war, World War III?
Look, I think there's a case here for allowing the sanctions, which are really unprecedented in their severity, to have some time to take effect. I know that's not going to be very satisfying for people who are watching the scenes you just showed from Ukraine, but nevertheless, these sanctions are incredibly severe. We've never seen anything like it against a major power, a nuclear-armed power such as Russia. So we do need time for them to take effect. And in fact, I'm concerned that maybe over the next few weeks we'll find that the pressure is too high, and that there is a risk that President Putin and the Russian government, rather than backing down, actually get an incentive to escalate this conflict. So what we want to do, I think, is remove any incentives for escalation, and that includes the prospect of a no-fly zone. I think that really is just a bridge too far. The idea of NATO and Russian air forces coming directly into combat with each other is a huge risk for escalation.
I can't believe how many people are calling for that no-fly zone. I wonder whether they appreciate what it could lead to, because it sounds good in theory, but like you said, it would see NATO forces shooting down Russian warplanes, and I don't think Vladimir Putin is going to consider that anything other than a direct attack. The Ukrainians are fighting like warriors. Do you see that changing anytime soon? We're talking about the impact the sanctions are going to have on Russia, but this is also having, obviously, a grim impact on the Ukrainian people. Are they going to keep fighting?
Gosh, I wish I could make a really safe prediction there. I just don't know. And one of the reasons that we're all struggling with these questions is that we can't be very certain about the information that's coming out of Ukraine. I mean, we probably everyone watching is also following their social media feeds and seeing footage, of Russian tank columns getting hit by Ukrainian anti-tank missiles and so on. And it looks like the Ukrainians have put up incredible resistance here, and the available information does suggest that, but we're just not getting a complete picture. For instance, it's very hard to know how many losses the Ukrainians themselves have suffered. So it wouldn't shock me if the Russians make major advances over the course of the next week, let's say, but nor would it shock me if the Russians continue to get bogged down and things get even worse for them.
Well, tell me about that misinformation or incomplete information that we've got in this conflict, because, yes, we keep hearing about how badly the Russian forces are doing, how badly they've miscalculated and how substandard their equipment is, but do you fully trust that information? And are we hearing what the full impact has been in Ukraine? We're so conscious of misinformation from the Russian side, and rightly so, but are we getting the complete picture out of Ukraine?
Look, it's partly a question of trust and mistrust, because there is propaganda coming from both sides. We should assume that both sides are, over-egging the figures when they say that, we've destroyed X number of tanks, or, X number of casualties on the other side. So we should be wary of those figures. But it's also a question of just not knowing. So, for instance, the American intelligence community has briefed the media to the effect that the Russians have suffered in the order of 5,000 or 6,000 deaths in this campaign. Now, that's an extraordinarily high figure in my view. In fact, the Americans themselves say that that's kind of World War II style numbers. But the Americans have also been very careful to say that they themselves have low confidence in those figures. Now, what that tells me is that the Americans just don't have really good information. They're making the best guess that they can on the little information that they have, but it's not something you'd pin a lot of certainty on.
If the Ukrainians don't back down, if they keep fighting the way they have been, and you mentioned those sanctions really start biting, can you see a way where Putin can retreat, or is he in this for the long run?
Again, mixed signals. I mean, some of the latest signals I've seen from the negotiations indicate that the Russian side is not ready to talk about any kind of settlement at all and wants to crush the Ukrainian military. On the other hand, via the Israelis, the Israeli Prime Minister visited Moscow recently. There are some indications that Russia is prepared to come to terms. It's all pretty vague at the moment and pretty uncertain as to where this is going to go. One thing I think you can always say is that that unless both sides feel that nothing is left to be gained by fighting, they will keep fighting.
It's just a horrific situation. Sam Roggeveen, thank you so much for joining us this evening.